Okay, so in this video we're going to create a Dinky Poster with our Dinky Spitfire on it. So the first thing we're going to do is duplicate our background layer, and then we're going to add a solid fill layer, which we're just going to put red into, and this is just to help us make sure that our cutout's good. So we place that under our copied layer, and now we're going to use select colour range. Here we go. And then all we do then is we use the dropper just to create like an outline around the Spitfire. So we say OK to that. And now if we add a mask to this layer and invert it with Control-I, there is a Spitfire largely cut out already. So now I've just clicked into the mask itself, and I'm just going to paint out the background of the mask all black. It's like Alt-click into the mask area. And I don't have to paint into it too carefully, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Burn tool, set to shadows, and I'm just quickly going to go around and burn all the greys into black. And because the Spitfire itself is white on the mask, it just won't touch it, but it'll barely touch the edges. So that's very quickly. Now we've cut our Spitfire out. We're just going to go in, just check that. So as you can see, some little details haven't been masked too well, but all we have to do, that's just me just realising I haven't selected the paintbrush yet. So as you can see, that's a deliberate mistake. Okay, so I'll just paint those areas white, and they'll no longer be transparent. So as you can see there, I'm just using the normal view to enable me, but I've still got the mask selected, so I'm just painting into the mask. Okay, so far we've been painting in the mask to clean up the edges. Now we're going to use the clone tool to copy bits of the existing Spitfire over the string which is holding the Spitfire off the light table. So we're just extending that join. Then we'll just patch out the string. So here again we're going to be painting into the mask, and we're going to remove the strings completely. So you just select the mask, and using black just paint them out. Using black, that is. Obviously I've got to remember to push the right button. So there you go, mistakes and everything. There you go, simple as that. Okay, so we're going to make our prop look like it's spinning, and to do this we'll make a duplicate of our Spitfire layer with its mask, and then what we'll do is we'll apply the mask to the Spitfire. So then what you have is a single item which has got transparency. And then what we'll do now is we'll now select around the propeller and the engine, copy this, Control-C, and we're going to paste this into a new document. Now this is the important bit, so we're going to use the crop tool to resize this so that the little centre, we've got to crop this square, we're going to crop this now so that the centre of the square is at the centre of the hub of the propeller. And we've got to get the blades all in as well, so you have to may have to increase the size of this a bit. Click OK. And we're going to do filter, blur, radial blur, and we'll make sure it's spin selected. And you have to play with the settings a little bit to get the spin that you want. But anyway, so this is what I've got. Now the important thing is this has got transparency. So when I go back to I'll copy this out, I'll go back to our main document, I'm going to paste this in as a new layer. Now using the move tool, we're going to move that around. I'm just decreasing the opacity so I can align it up with the existing propeller. Okay, and now we're going to use a mask, and we're going to paint out all the blurry stuff that we're not interested in using a black brush. So basically our engine cover and stuff all starts to look nice and sharp again. I might have noticed that our propeller isn't looking as blurry as it should do, so what we need to do now is go to the original sharp Spitfire. We just put a mask on that, and now using a black brush we're going to paint out the sharp Spitfire's blades. Alright, and first you won't see a difference because I'm selecting the wrong tool. And also what you've got to do as well is turn off the layer below. So you can see I'm making a mistake because I'm wondering at the moment why it's not working, and I've realised I've got to turn off that layer. Now you can see the blurred propellers come through. It's a fake blur, but it's good enough for what we're wanting to do. Okay, so that's not too bad. Oops. So just sharpening up some bits. Okay, so now what we're going to do is add a background, and so I've got this sky, so I'm going to copy and paste into this document as a new layer in the document. There you go. And there you go, you see we're flying. Okay, and what I've decided at this point is I want to change the orientation of the image. So I'm using the crop tool now. I'm actually just going to resize it using the canvas. So there you go. So this is me dithering. Because there's different ways. There's many ways of doing the same thing. This is another way of doing it. So all I'm going to do is on the canvas, I'm going to just change the dimensions of the picture from being wide to tall. So just swap the numbers around basically. Okay, and nothing's been lost. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to resize that sky so it fills the document. Now I've created a new layer. On this layer we're going to actually paint in the frames of the canopy on the Spitfire. So that layer's on top of everything else in the Spitfire stack, and we'll just paint over it. Now all I'm doing is I'm sampling colours of the camouflage paint around the canopy, and then using those just to basically just very crudely paint them in. Because we're going to de-res this image a bit to give this sort of illustration effect in a bit anyway. And I'm just taking some bubbles out as well out of the canopy using the spot healing brush. Just it's very subtle. So now I'm making a copy of the whole Spitfire, and this is going to be passed out to a filter. to give it a bit more of a sort of illustration look. So we're just going to use Topaz Labs. We're just going to use Simplify. Now I'm just using this basically because I quite like the effect, but you can do all of this in Photoshop, but you have to use quite a few different effects stacked to get the same result. So this just basically saves me a bit of time, because otherwise this would be like several hour video. So I'm just using Simplify just to give me like a derezzed version of this image. Then we'll go back to Photoshop. There you go, so it looks kind of like a bit cartoony, but what we're going to do now is make another copy of this layer, and we're going to load this into Photoshop's filter gallery. Wow. What we're going to do is just use the cutout filter to make a sort of very derezzed version of this. And again, the sorts of settings that you use really is like personal taste. So you can do all kinds of effects. I'm just going to use cutout. And again, the settings all depend on your picture. So this just works. This is what I think works for me. I've just set the blend mode to overlay, so that the two layers interact with each other. And I might play with the opacity, or sometimes soft light's a good other alternative. Now at this point I've been messing around with filters and stuff on my sky, but the sky's kind of not doing it for me, so I've decided to copy in another sky photo I have and paste that in instead. So let's see if this is a bit more interesting. Okay, so it's a bit more dynamic. What we'll do is we'll just resize that. Okay, so it's just covering the background. I looked around with this sky, this alternative sky for a little bit in the filter gallery, and I found what worked for me was the palette knife filter. And so what I did was, if you go into filter gallery, and basically I just sort of maxed it up a bit. It's quite a subtle effect. It's really more, some of these effects only really work on quite low res images. So this is like a 24 megapixel image. So what it is, I got an effect that was going where I liked, and if you do Control F, it'll run the filter again. We click that menu item, just trying to show you. I think I ran it several times just to strengthen the effect and build on itself. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is make the whole image look like it's a bit distressed, and so I have a photograph of some stained paper. So I'm going to copy that into my document and try and put it at the top. And sometimes what happens is it goes into the wrong thing, so it's gone into the group for the Spitfire, so I want it to be above everything. There you go. And so what we'll do then is we'll resize this. Here you need to experiment with blend modes to sort of figure out what works best for your texture and your picture, but quite often overlay and soft light are quite commonly the way to go. Okay, now I'm just adding a levels adjustment so I can sort of further control how the texture interacts with the lower layers, so I can make the effect stronger. So there you go, so you can sort of see stains and everything now. I'm just using the clone tool to remove some of the more larger bits out of the texture, just to make it look a little bit smoother. Okay. So now we're going to add some text to the poster. So we're going to add a text object. Make sure we've got the right font. Make the font reasonable size. There you go, and type in Dinky Toys. And we're just going to change the colour. So I got these values by sampling a photograph of a box or an advert on the internet. So there you go, so that's the colour. It's just a bit weird because it's currently under the text. It's been affected by the curves layer for the texture. So we're just drawing the shape to go with it. I'll give that a colour. Again, these values I've gotten from an advert I've seen on the internet. Okay, so that's the colour put in. So obviously it looks a bit wrong because if you can see I've trapped them in the curves adjustment. Okay, so I've got my text and my banner are sorted out, so I'll just create a group called title, and I'll just drop those items into that group. As you can see, the texture is also showing on the title now as well. So it all looks like it's all printed on an older piece of paper. So now I've made a copy of that text layer and I'm rasterizing that so it becomes a picture, and then I can use a distort feature to actually just pull the text over to give it that italicized look. Okay, so with the text all done, the only thing I will do is just tidy up the stack on the layers palette, and I might resize the Spitfire. And I think that's it really. Might do a little bit of a levels adjustment, but that's it. Okay, so there you go. That's how I've created a sort of Dinky Spitfire poster. Now I've skimped over some elements because if I was to explain everything fully, this would be like a 2-hour video. And I don't think anyone's got the willpower for me droning on that long. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that, and speak to you soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.